just needed to take a deep breath. Hi, I hope you guys are having a good day today. Today you are going to learn about the next steps in your slumped bowl project. Yesterday you took your plaster mold, you made a slab of clay, you slumped that clay over the mold, and so today when we unwrap our clay bowl, it should be leather hard. And we're going to add feet today, and we're going to start to add the string design today too. So I'm going to move my camera so you can see what we're doing here for today. All right, so this is the bowl that I made yesterday. When I touch the clay, it actually does still feel a little bit sticky, which is fine. We would want it to be more leather hard before we take it off the mold, but we're not taking it off the mold today. We're going to let it set up for one more day, so it's really okay that it's not truly 100% leather hard yet. So I just have it elevated on my slip container so I can easier access and turn it around. So my next step is to figure out what kind of foot I'm going to add to the bottom of my pot. Now, one type of foot that you can add, incidentally, when I say foot, I don't mean like literal feet, like a human foot or a duck foot or that kind of thing. Although if you wanted to, you could add literal animal feet to the bottom of your pot, but that's kind of silly. So what we're talking about here for a foot is a ring foot. Most of the cups and bowls and things that you have at home have a ring foot, just a subtle little ring that is on the bottom of the pot that stabilizes it so it doesn't rock. It elevates it so it looks taller than it really is, and it absorbs shock. So if you set it down kind of a little bit too hard, it absorbs the shock of that pressure, and it will be saving your project from cracking. So we're going to add a foot, either a foot ring, or another solution is you could add peg feet. So a peg foot is where you add a little chunk of clay and then do that repeatedly so that you have feet that elevate it as little pegs. So that's another solution too. We don't want these feet to be super tall. We just want them to be subtle and stable and just give us a little bit of lift up off the table. So I need some clay, and I am going to make peg feet. Actually, I'll show you two different ways to make feet, so then you can choose. And you can certainly invent your own way to make feet too. That's fine. So one way that I could make a foot is by making a coil and have it be a ring. So to make a coil of clay, I'm just using the palms of my hands, and I'm going to roll it back and forth so you can see better. I'm going to roll it back and forth so that I get a pretty uniform rope of clay. So if it starts to turn into an oval shape, that's totally okay. You can have it be an oval, but we want it to be relatively consistent in its size. So now I could take this rope of clay, and I have to decide the placement. Where is it going to go on my pot? And so a good rule of thumb is that the foot should go in that place where your pot changes from being a flat bottom to being a curved side. So kind of in this zone right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to have one finger under my mold and one finger kind of marking that ideal zone where my foot should go. And I'm going to keep my thumb in that location, and I'm just turning the pot. So I'm making this little indent with my thumbnail, and I'm using my index finger down below to kind of help me keep it at the same level. Oh, look how perfect that is. So that is the placement for my foot. Okay, so now I need my slit. Sorry, I have two work areas, one for ceramics B, one for ceramics A. Speaking of which, yesterday, when you logged on for your Google Meet, those of you who didn't get my message, sorry about that. For ceramics A, I'm not doing any synchronous teaching. So all of it is asynchronous. So you just make sure that you're watching the daily videos, taking the attendance question. Sorry also that I didn't have the attendance question ready to go when class started. I didn't realize that I hadn't enabled it. So I'll try and be better at that today as well. So if you haven't already, you could pause the video, and go take the attendance question now. So you get marked as present. Okay, so I just scored around the area where this foot ring is going to be joined. And now I'm just going to take the fork and I'm going to score and slip down the length of the ring. And then I'm just going to make sure that the two scored areas are what touch. Okay, and then I'm going to take my sponge. Dang it, I got to grab my sponge. Okay, my sponge and my cup of water. And I'm just using the sponge, kind of making it into a U shape. See how that looks like kind of a U or a V? So I'm going to use that, and I'm going to smooth the top, the inside, and the outside simultaneously by using the sponge in that V shape. So I'm kind of compressing it and trying to smooth it and really integrate it into the surface of my bowl. So this little spot right here where my coil stopped and start, I'm going to need to use my finger, I think, to blend that in a little bit better. And let me do a little bit more pointed smoothing on the inside. And then a little bit more smoothing on the outside. So that's one solution for a foot. You could do a ring foot, and now my pot sits flat, level on that ring. So that's one solution. I'm going to take that off, however, so I can show you a different solution. And I'm going to pretend that this isn't a big old mess. Smooth it up a little bit. Give it a little massage. There we go. Okay. So another solution for the foot is I could make peg feet. So to make a peg, it really can be any shape and size. So I'm going to make a really simple type of foot where I make a pebble, and then I'm going to make another pebble, and then, dang it. One of these days I'll get organized. Okay, so this is a fun trick. So I have my two pebbles. If I take and use my plastic card to slice my pebble in half, okay, I can put the flat side down, and then I have this second one that I can put down, and then I have this third one that I can slice and put down. So I have three pebbled feet. This one's a little bit smaller, so I'm going to use this one instead. And I can score and slip those three pebbled feet. And notice they're still in that same zone, that area that is the transition between the flat part of my pot and the wall of my pot. It really is important these feet are centered. So those could be slipped and scored, and then those could be my feet. Another way you could do peg feet is if you make a Hershey's Kiss shape. So you could start with a pebble, and then once you have your pebble, hold your hands in a V shape, and then just roll it back and forth in that V so you get more of a spike, like a Hershey's Kiss. And then if you pat the flat part of it, or the bigger part of it on the table, it really looks like a Hershey's Kiss. And then you can slip and score three Hershey's Kiss shapes on the bottom for your feet. They almost kind of look like chocolate chips too. Another solution is I could make some short, stocky little coils and then slip and score these little short, stocky feet on the bottom. So it's important that they're unified. So whatever you do for one, make sure you do that for all three. And I do recommend 3 feet. If you're going to do pegs, do 3 instead of 4. Certainly better than doing 2. 2 wouldn't be very stable. Okay, so there's kind of a little looped foot. I could set my pot down on that. You could do triangles, you could do squares, you could do dice, you could do cubes. Yeah, just be consistent. So whatever you do for one, make sure you do that for the other 3. And 3 feet also, is really beneficial because it won't rock like a tripod. Even if one leg of the tripod is a little bit shorter than the other things, it still won't rock. So, so 3 feet, if you're going to do pegs, is a good way to go. Okay, so now I don't have any feet on here. Let me quick get some feet on here. I kind of like those little loops, so I think I'm going to go with that. So there are my 3 feet. So now my task is to do as much cleanup as I can to this surface, because after I'm done cleaning up this surface, I get to start adding my design. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time smoothing, really getting into all those nooks and crannies. Now that I'm done smoothing, I kind of need this to set up a little bit. I need it to become a little bit more firm, certainly less shiny, before I move on to my next step. So I'm going to set that aside and let that get leather hard for right now. And what I'm going to do next is I'm going to figure out what kind of continuous line design am I going to put on this bowl, because you're going to be embedding the string to make that line design in the outside of your bowl today. So I have my notebook here, and I'm going to draw what my bowl looks like from above, and I'm going to draw what it looks like from below. Here's my little looped feet that I just put on there. Wow, I'm an artist. Okay, and so this is what it looks like from the inside, or what I would imagine it would look like from the inside. There's the lip of my pot. Okay, so I have this kind of looped design. So I think what I'm going to do with my string is I'm going to create a design that mimics that kind of loop, and have my string create that design. So I might start my string. Let me start it in the center here. And then I'm going to loop it down, and then loop it over, and then loop it, and then loop it, and then loop it, and then what? And then I'm going to make it go around the rim, and then I'm going to loop it. Oh boy, wrong spot. I'm going to loop it, and loop it, and loop it, and loop it. You sick of me saying loop it yet? And then loop, 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 loop. And then here in the middle, we'll do some little loops. I didn't think my continuous design through very well. I don't love that. Okay, I'm going to rethink this. Okay, new bottom. Loopy foot, loopy foot, loopy foot. Okay, so I'm going to go with the same kind of loopy design, but I think I can't skip from side to side. That's going to be really hard if I just have a single piece of string. So instead, I need to think a little bit more differently. I'm going to think about making my loops be more continuous. So one flows into the other. So it almost looks like flames, what this reminds me of. Oh, I've trapped myself into a corner now. I got to learn to fill the space as I go. And it's okay if your string covers over itself. Like if one string overlaps another area. And how I actually do this in reality is probably going to look pretty different than in my drawing. I just want to have a game plan in my drawing. Okay, so this is better. I like this better because I was better about doing a more continuous design. And so then if I did bottom and top view, so here maybe I would try and start in the middle and let it grow out from there. Kind of looks like a sun. It really requires a different way of thinking, doing a continuous line design, because you can't skip from here to here to here to here to here. Although I guess you could. It would be just a very different sort of design. Huh. Interesting. Kind of looks like bananas. That's what it reminds me of. So at any rate, this is my game plan. This is what I think I'm going to do. In reality, that might change. So that's my game plan. So while I am still waiting for this to dry, because it's still shiny in some spots, I am going to go look for some string. And the ideal string to use for this assignment is string that's not thread, because thread is going to be really, really tiny. And when we embed it in the clay and then paint over it with our colored engobe, when we peel that thread away, with it being so tiny and thin, you would probably never even see that it left a mark, that it resisted the engobe. And we don't want yarn, like thick knitting yarn, because it'll be too bulky and too thick, and it'll make too three-dimensional of a design into the clay, or a texture into the clay. So we want to find something that's between thread for sewing and yarn for knitting. So the perfect thickness is embroidery floss. Embroidery floss usually comes in a little kind of oval shaped skein, is what it's called. It's just a little oval shaped package of thread, and it's usually not very much thread, but it should be enough to cover at least the outside. I think that embroidery floss maybe costs $1 or $2 at a craft store like Joann's. But I also have a ton of embroidery floss. So if you're a hybrid kid, you can get some string from me. I can give you a bunch to take home. And if you're not a hybrid kid and you don't have any of this kind of in-between string at home, you can come in and I will give you a package of this special kind of thread that'll be the right size. So I'm going to go get that thread now so you can see. So this is not technically embroidery floss. This is, I think it's called string for crewel work, CREWEL. But you can see the thickness of it. It's definitely thicker than thread that you would thread through the eye of a needle, but it's not as thick as yarn that you would use for crocheting or for knitting. It's kind of in between. I don't know if you can see this very well. But it'll work really perfect for the purposes of what we're doing here. So I am going to start embedding my string into my clay, and it just needs to be embedded enough to stay put. We're going to come back and embed it a little bit more effectively, or I'm going to come back and embed this deeper in a little bit. But for right now, it just needs to stay put. So I'm trying to kind of stick with that back and forth design that you saw me do. Oh, this reminds me, what is that part of a cell that is all squiggly? Like, you know, you've had to make a model of a cell in science class. Is it the mitochondria? Oh my gosh, I'm making a mitochondria bowl. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, if that's not what it is. But I think that's what it is. Okay, so now I'm coming back and I'm really trying to make sure that that's truly embedded in the clay. Okay, and then maybe I'll take it over here a little bit. So I'm definitely changing up my design already, which is fine. If it doesn't stick very well, you can get your sponge, just add a little bit of moisture, and by adding a little bit of water to the string, it should help with the embedding. So the string maybe isn't quite so having a mind of its own. Okay, so this part might get a little bit tedious, but I want you to stick with it, because imagine how much fun it's going to be not today, but how fun it's going to be to pull this off of there and to see the design that comes from it. So be patient with it. Put on a good TV show, put on some good music, and just kind of like get lost in it. Get in the zone. You know what song I have in my head right now? I don't even know where this came from, people. It's the chicken dance. Yeah, sorry. Okay, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to really try and make sure that the string is embedded, because if it doesn't embed in the clay, it is going to allow the engobe to sneak underneath it when I paint this with engobe. So I'm just kind of stamping it in with my damp sponge, trying to put some pressure on there. And there's some slip getting on the string, and honestly, that's really good if a fine layer of slip gets on top of your string, because once that fine layer of slip gets leather hard, it's going to help the string stay put. So that's actually a really good thing. One of the things I learned, though, is not to scrub back and forth with my finger. The stamping is really the way to go. If I scrub back and forth with my finger, it actually roughs up some of the fibers of this thread, because this string is actually several string segments twisted together, and I don't want to untwist them. Then they lose their lininess. Okay, pretty much the whole thing is embedded now. It's got that fine layer of slip on it. Okay, now I'm going to let this sit uncovered, because it's really rehydrated now, and if I were to paint it now, the engobe would mix with this slip, this fine layer of slip that's on here. So I'm going to let this chill uncovered for about 20 minutes, okay? Set a timer, go watch your TV show, go do your other homework for about 20 minutes, okay? Then come back. Okay, so I totally cheated and used a hairdryer to get this to the point where it's not sticky anymore. There's a few areas that are still kind of wet, kind of in between the little feet, but the areas where the string is are no longer wet. So I'm going to move on to the next step. So I have my little jar of engobe. This color happens to be black engobe. The color that you see is pretty much the color it's going to be. So that's one of the nice things about engobe. So I'm going to use my paintbrush, and I'm just going to paint one layer of engobe over my string design. So I'm trying to be gentle with it because I don't want to dislodge the string. You can paint your feet. I've just decided not to paint the feet. I'm going to let them be the original color of the clay. That's really up to you. If you're a hybrid kid and you're going to be at school another day this week, not today, but another day, I have other colors of engobe that you can use as well. So if you want, you can switch out your color, or you can get more than one color and create like an ombre fade from one color into another color. or you can just use the color that you happened to get in your swag bag. Okay, but it's really important that as you're painting it on, no matter what color it is, try to paint it lightly enough so the string doesn't move. Okay, couple things to note. Your engobe should only take one layer. You shouldn't need to do more than one layer. You're going to probably want maybe a little bit bigger brush than I gave you. I gave out mostly little tiny fine brushes. And so if you have a bigger brush at home, go ahead and use it. Maybe not an enormous brush, but if you have a bigger brush, you might find that helpful. Otherwise, you can use the tiny brush that I gave you. It might just take a little bit more time. But again, you know, put some good tunes on, put a good TV show on, and just chill. You know, just do your painting while enjoying some ear candy. You get the eye candy with the ear candy. Woohoo! Okay. I don't know if I like these feet being a different color, but whatever. I'm in it to win it now. So I'm just looking for areas I need to touch up. I guess I could paint my feet. I just don't think I will. Don't worry about painting the lip, the underneath part here yet. Certainly don't worry about painting the inside. We're not even going anywhere near the inside yet. We're just focusing on the outside for today. And when you're done painting, we can't just put this inside a bag. You're going to take a photo of it, first of all. But we can't just slide it inside a bag because your engobe will smear also all over inside your bag. So again, you're going to have to let this sit out in the open for about another 10 to 15 minutes to the point where the engobe is no longer shiny. See, right now this is still shiny. It tells me it's still wet. So we need to let it firm up because even though it's engobe, it still will get leather hard. And so let it get leather hard and then bag it up for tomorrow. Don't take the string off today, okay? I'm going to look you in the eye and say that. Don't take the string off today. I know you're going to want to because that's going to be a really fun, exciting part. But if there's too much engobe that has soaked into the string, pulling the string off today is going to be a horrible mess. So we want to wait till everything is truly set up and leather hard for tomorrow before we pull the string off, okay? So please don't take the string off today. Paint over the string, let it get leather hard, stick it in a bag so it stays leather hard for tomorrow, and then you get to pull your string off first thing tomorrow, okay? That'll be fun. Something to look forward to. If you are a hybrid kid and you're going to be at school tomorrow, bring this in exactly as it is, wrapped up in a bag after you've taken your photo, after it's leather hard, bag it, put it in a box so that it doesn't get bumped and jostled. Put it in a box surrounded by a bunch of crumpled up bags and then bring it to school so that you can move on to the next step in class tomorrow. And I was going to tell you something. Shoot, forgot what it was. That's it. Bag it up for today after you've taken your photo, after it's leather hard, and that is your steps for today. All right? Message me if you have any questions. Make sure you answer the attendance question for today so you're marked as present. And don't forget, if you're hybrid tomorrow, bring this piece wrapped up in a box for class. Oh, and you can drop it off before school so you're not carrying it with you to all your other classes. All right? Thanks, guys. Good luck. Have fun today.